At 3 o'clock in the morning, when the battlefield was wrapped in silence and the cold October air pressed down like a weight, something began to wake in the darkness. Somewhere deep behind Ukrainian lines, a radar operator leaned closer to his screen. A faint echo, too sharp to be wildlife, too deliberate to be static, blipped across the display. Moments later, a thermal drone sweeping over a distant ridge saw something else. A cluster of heat signatures that didn't match any expected pattern engines, equipment, movement. And as those feeds converged into Ukraine's command network, analysts realized they weren't looking at a random anomaly. No, they were witnessing the start of an opportunity so unusual, so unexpected, that it could only exist for a brief moment before the battlefield shifted again. This wouldn't be an airstrike, it wouldn't be artillery, and it wouldn't be drones. That night, Ukraine was preparing to weaponize something far older, far more powerful, and far more unpredictable than steel or explosives. They were about to turn water into a weapon. But to understand how such an idea became reality, we need to rewind the clock a few hours back to the moment when everything began. Before we continue, if you enjoy deep military analysis, real operations told with cinematic clarity, and battlefield stories brought to life with precision, consider subscribing to WarfareLab. Your support helps us keep producing high-quality content like this. Earlier that night, shortly after midnight on October 26th, 2 Ukrainian LEA-100 reconnaissance drones were cruising at altitude. The mission was routine: update thermal maps, cross-check known Russian positions, and verify supply routes. Calm, uneventful work, until their sensors swept over a valley tucked behind a low ridge. The drone's thermal imaging lit up with activity. There, hidden in a fold of terrain and camouflaged from satellites, sat a fully active Russian logistics hub. Engines idled, crew tents glowed with body heat. Supplies radiated dense blocks of thermal energy. The analysts leaned closer. 84 military trucks, neatly lined up, each loaded with thousands of pounds of artillery ammunition. 4 CAM-5 350 fuel tankers containing more than 2,500 gallons of diesel. And farther back, almost blending into the hillside, a reinforced warehouse, the unmistakable signature of a battalion-level logistics node. But the most important detail wasn't the trucks, or the fuel, or the warehouse. It was what was upstream. Rising above the valley, bathed in faint moonlight, stood the Belgorod Reservoir Dam, an enormous structure holding back nearly 80 billion gallons of water. A mass so vast that, if suddenly released, it would sweep across the valley with the force of a natural disaster. When that realization hit the operations room, everything stopped. The dam wasn't just a landmark. It wasn't just terrain. It was a potential warhead, one nature itself had built. Within 15 minutes, Ukrainian planners sketched out a plan. It was bold, dangerous, and if executed correctly, devastating. They wouldn't attack the camp directly. Instead, they would breach the dam's control cluster with precision strikes. The water would do the rest, destroy the camp, cut off supply routes, and cripple Russian logistics without a single shell landing on the soldiers themselves. At 3:05 a.m., 3 HIMARS launchers rolled out from deep camouflage near Chuhuiv. Their crews moved with quiet discipline. Coordinates from the UAV feed were transmitted, confirmed, and cross-checked. Each launcher carried 2 GMLRS rockets, tipped with 200-pound concrete-penetrating warheads. Weapons designed for one purpose: punching through hardened structures. GPS guidance would take them part of the way. But once near the border, the rockets would switch to inertial navigation, supported by terrain-following radar to keep them flying dangerously low. Too low for most radars to detect. Meanwhile, to the northwest, a separate Ukrainian team prepared their deception package. Two modified UJ-22 drones meant to mimic Neptune cruise missiles. Their engines hummed softly as they lifted off a makeshift runway, rising into the darkness. They emitted RF patterns, infrared heat signatures, and radar reflections identical to a real missile. A Russian 96L6E radar spotted them. The operator classified the targets as cruise missiles. A Panzer S-1 battery snapped to life, locking onto the decoys. And just like that, Russia's air defenses turned completely toward the wrong threat. While the decoys crawled forward at low speed, maintaining the perfect signature of a Neptune in its terminal phase, the 6 real GMLRS rockets were already slicing through the night at Mach 3, hugging the terrain so tightly that radar waves skimmed over them like water over stone. The rockets were invisible, unreachable, unstoppable. At less than 2 miles from the dam, their onboard computers refined their trajectories one last time, adjusting for a near-perfect 90-degree impact angle. There would be no glancing blows, no partial damage. These strikes were designed to break the dam's spine. The Panzer battery, having emptied its interceptors at the decoys, was stuck in a reload cycle. Other nearby defenses struggled to acquire targets that were flying so low and so fast. At 3:07:05 a.m., the first rocket slammed into the central spillway control. The second tore into the machinery chamber. The next detonated against reinforced valve housings. Steel twisted. Concrete shattered inward. Water sprayed through fresh cracks like white jets of steam. The dam moaned. A deep, resonant sound felt more than heard. And then, at 3:07:14 a.m., the structure surrendered. A thunderous roar erupted as millions of gallons burst through the breach. A towering plume of water shot upward nearly 100 feet, then collapsed into a churning, unstoppable wave, rushing downstream at more than 40 miles per hour. It carried mud, stone, concrete, entire slabs of foundation. 2.5 kilometers away, the Russian logistics hub slept. The first wave hit with brutal indifference. 3 trucks vanished instantly. Communications towers folded like twigs. A hardened electronics bunker filled with black water in 20 seconds. Personnel ran, stumbled, shouted, but the darkness and chaos swallowed everything. Russian communications across northwest Donetsk flickered, sputtered, then died. A Ukrainian drone caught its final thermal image, a burning fuel truck twisting in the current, drifting away into nothingness. At 3:25 a.m., in the Southern Military District headquarters in Rostov, screens began to fail. Icons turned gray. Vehicles disappeared from the map. UAVs went silent. An entire supply corridor had been erased. Initial reports spoke of destroyed trucks, fuel tankers, ammunition depots, communications arrays, UAV hangars, and at least 80 personnel lost. Engineers declared multiple river crossings unsafe. The front line, already strained, was suddenly starved of ammunition, fuel, and support. Recovery would take days. Time Russia did not have. This was not a conventional strike. It was a masterpiece of layered warfare, reconnaissance, deception, precision fire, and environmental manipulation. Ukraine hadn't targeted soldiers. It had struck a structural vulnerability and let physics do the rest. And in modern warfare, where logistics decide everything, a single hydro breach had delivered the impact of dozens of missile strikes. In a world where terrain is often seen as passive, Ukraine proved it could become a weapon. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more cinematic analyses of real operations, make sure to subscribe to WarfareLab. Your support keeps these stories alive, and there's much more to explore. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next report.